Hey guys, so today has kind of been a rough day, and I always say to be your own best advocate. And I need to tell you, it's story time. I went back to therapy. I went for things at home that I'm having difficulty with based on PTSD and trauma responses. By my second appointment, after my first appointment, to be clear, my therapist felt very sure that I had dissociative identity disorder. This is a complicated diagnosis and a very serious one. And for the past, I want to say 2.5, 3 weeks after that appointment, because right after telling me that, she went on vacation, which is fine. She had earned vacation time. But to hit someone with something like that who studies psychology themselves, that's rough. So I sat around and questioned my own reality for 2.5 to 3 weeks. And that's so long to just sit with your thoughts. And I researched everything. I read everything. I went over my DSM 5. I talked to my family. I talked to my husband. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely do dissociate. I am missing time, but I do not have other personalities. I do not have other names. I do not have other ages. I do not have any of that. And for the diagnosis of DID, you need two distinct personalities in addition to your own. I don't have that. Like, yes, I have a ton of history of trauma. So much. Childhood trauma, adolescence, early adulthood, different types of trauma. But I do not have DID. I'm very certain of that. And today, after analyzing and overthinking my entire life, my whole existence, trying to catch myself doing things differently, my husband trying to catch me doing things differently, it got to be too much. It was a lot of confusion, anger, and panic, horrible anxiety. Because if you do have that diagnosis, it's not a bad thing. It's just very difficult to treat. And it takes a very long time to help you get to the point that you're okay. And unfortunately, some people, they never get to that point, and it's so severe that they end up living in an assisted living type of situation. So that diagnosis, I kind of feel like I was a science experiment. Like that's where I was headed. Because there are new treatment methods out for different things. And they're new. And if you have a patient with a certain diagnosis, the facility you work for will more often than not cover the tuition of furthering your education in that area, aka in this area, trauma response. So I'm not saying anyone was trying to take advantage of me or anything like that, but what I am saying is always be your best advocate. Today, I reached my breaking point. Explosive anger, crying, hopelessness, and thinking that everything I know to be real isn't. That's a lot of heavy shit to try and deal with. That's why I've been dancing around it in other lives and in other videos when people are like, what do you have? Because I never felt like it was right. I know they said, we think so, but how do you know after one appointment? One. And I remember that entire appointment. I went over everything that had happened to me. I had an hour, and I did. I addressed every instance of trauma that I've had in my life. I never switched. I never dissociated during that appointment. I never presented as anyone other than me. The reason that she thought I had it was based on one statement. And I had a hysterectomy. And the way I like to word it is, I thought that by cutting that part of me away and out, I would no longer feel dirty. And I have been sexually assaulted horribly, as many of you know from my past videos and my history on lives. And honestly, that's the way I thought. I thought that if I got rid of those sexual organs that had been abused, that I would feel better, because those parts of me that were dirtied, would be gone. And rationally, that makes sense. Why someone would think that way. Now, to be fair, in reality, do I feel better? No. Because it's here. It's not just those parts of you physically that have been injured. It's all the traumas here. And, in a bid to try and help make myself feel better, I needed the hysterectomy for other reasons, but I tried to be more okay with it by, those parts will be gone and you'll feel like you've been purified, like you're starting again. That things will be easier in the bedroom. Because that has been a long-standing issue for me since those assaults. That it would be easier and that I would feel more comfortable and less trauma responsey. So because of that statement, because I said that I felt like cutting that part of me away would make me feel better, she took the cutting a part of me away and somehow connected that to having DID and removing a personality or something. But that isn't the case, and that never has been and never will be the case. I honestly just thought that if the parts of me that were soiled and used and taken advantage of, that pregnancy that resulted in a forced elimination, to not offend anyone, by that really abusive ex-boyfriend back then, that if that was gone, that I would feel like a new woman. Like I would feel new, right? And again, no, that's not how that worked, but that's how all of this came about. It wasn't because I was switching. It wasn't because I had different personalities. It's because I worded something the way I did. So for those of you wondering, no, I am not going back to counseling. It has done more harm than good right now. I will consider going back if I can find a different counselor. But this is part of being your own best advocate, because that diagnosis thrown into my medical record would have put the brakes on to a lot of the things I have been working so hard to do. And the way that I come on here and try to be helpful to you guys, because I was questioning my reality and whether I was even worthy of trying to help anyone. It's heavy. It's a lot. It was a lot. And today I got to the point where I couldn't. And I said, look, when I canceled all the appointments, I do it through my chart. And they said, comments, why? Because honestly, I felt more like an experiment than I was getting help for any of the reasons I initially went. So years ago, when I stopped going to therapy, I stopped going because it made me feel worse. Now, could the counselor back then have been doing things in my own best interest? Maybe. But right now, this doesn't feel like it's that. It kind of feels like I was never going to get help for why I went in the first place. The dissociation that is periodic and usually based around trauma or trauma triggers, and, sexual reasons. I really did. I feel like I was more like an experiment. And it has led to a lot of inner turmoil that I never needed. And so, again, counseling doesn't feel right. Be your own best advocate. Okay, guys? It's so important. If it's not right, it's not right.